Let's talk about podcast subscriptions. And into this conversation, I want to give you a guide to paid podcasts. Okay. And here's an overview I want you to pay attention to. So if you're a podcaster, whether you're an experienced podcaster, you're a pro podcaster, or even a newbie, you probably already know that there are multiple ways to earn money from your content, right? You can monetize your content. You can actually also have paid subscriptions, and among other things, you can have sponsorships, so on and so forth. And most podcasters earn money from inserting paid ads into their episodes. But what if you want to diversify your income stream, for instance, or maybe you want to rely on your loyal listeners instead of brands to support you? So the answer really is through paid podcast subscriptions. And so what are those? I want to really go a little granular so we have a clear idea what we're speaking about. So most podcasts are free. Listeners just subscribe to new episodes on their favorite podcast listening apps like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, right? But some podcasters offer exclusive podcast content only paid subscribers can access. So as their name suggests, paid podcasts, only known as private podcasts, are only available to people who pay for them. So those paying subscribers can usually access the show using a private, unique RSS feed linked to their email. And some major podcast apps, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, now offer in-app subscriptions, which makes it, when you really think about it, it makes it even easier for your listeners to pay for exclusive content, okay? Now, some podcast subscriptions are for bonus content, while the main podcast episodes are still free to the general public. And other podcasters choose to put a paywall around all of their content, requiring subscribers to pay a regular fee to access the show at all. So it really depends on your strategy. It really depends on what kind of monetary incentives you want or what kind of goals you have. And why should you consider using paid subscriptions for your podcast? Well, money is number one. But also in terms of if you want to position your podcast at a certain level, you should think about paid subscriptions also. As podcasting becomes an increasingly crowded market, it can be difficult to land enough advertising deals to meet your income goals. And you need a relatively huge podcast audience to even start attracting brands as podcast sponsors. So when you think about that, paid subscriptions can be an alternative that's really attractive for all kinds of subscribers, all kinds of podcasters for that matter, okay? So you can actually have, like, this is kind of similar to Patreon, for instance. So you have a high monetization potential. You are able to generate somewhere from $4,000 to $10,000 a month, okay? So this is really cool. By the way, boss, welcome back to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Make yourself comfortable. You are going to enjoy today's conversation. Let me give you a few pro tips here. So how do you actually come up with a podcast subscription strategy? I want to give you a few ideas that we have tested over the last few years, and that those ideas worked pretty well, okay? You can think about, when we think about paid podcasts, you have a few different flavors, okay? The podcast subscription strategy you choose depends on your goals, how much more work you can take on, and whether you want a portion of your income to be from traditional ad sponsorships. It also depends on the size of your team. If you are by yourself, you are a solopreneur, or you have a team behind you. So you can have, for instance, ad-free podcast. You can have bonus content. You can have early episode access, or you can have access to your archives. So when we talk about ad-free podcast, many of your listeners will be willing to pay a few dollars a month to hear your episodes without ads. If you want to keep your ad revenue but want to explore paid podcasts, you might want to offer an ad-free option to your most devoted fans. So this option is great for podcasters who want to experiment with paid podcasts without changing their recording schedule or the amount of work they put in. You could also try bonus content. So if you're willing to record more podcast content, you might consider putting bonus episodes on other content behind a paywall. So some listeners are more willing to pay for new exclusive content that's simply to cut out ads. And for your most engaged listeners, access to subscriber-only content is a powerful motivator in our view. So remember though, bonus content doesn't need to be full episodes. It can be outtakes, it can be longer interviews, or it can be a short listener mailbag episodes. You also have early episode access. So another way to offer paid benefits without spending more time in the recording studio is really to offer paid subscribers early access to episodes. So if your show is on the regular release schedule and episodes are ready at least a few days before they're published, it should be easy to offer early access to your paying customers. And also you can have access to your archives. So if you have a long running show with years of bad content, consider putting older episodes behind a paywall. So this strategy helps you monetize old episodes that no longer earn you advertising dollars. And more engaged fans and loyal listeners will likely be willing to pay for long-term access to all of your old episodes. So this is really good. By the way, boss, I want to quickly welcome you, but also remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about podcast subscriptions. I'm giving you a few tips and hacks that you need to implement right now to start making more money. Let me give you the steps you need to really follow here when it comes to podcast subscriptions. And so how do you actually set up your own podcast subscription? Well, for ad-free episodes, if you haven't done already, you want to submit your RSS feeds to Apple Podcasts and other players. So you want to create a new episodes in Apple Podcasts or Spotify for that matter. You want to actually click Add Subscriber Audio and choose the audio file that matches the ad-free episode. You want to publish the ad-supported version of your RSS feed. And so after you publish your ad-supported episode, you can link the ad-free version in your Apple Podcast Connect account, or you can choose the Spotify account. It really depends on the hosting platform, but the steps are pretty similar here. And so this is if you want to have ad-free episodes. If you want to have a subscriber-only show, you want to create a new show on the hosting platform, whether it is on Spotify or Apple Podcast Connect, for instance. You want to create a new episode. You want to select to make the episode paid only, and you want to upload your audio. For bonus episodes, you want to choose an existing RSS-based show or submit a new RSS feed. You want to create a new episode, and you want to choose the episode type. So this can be a bonus or a full, and you can actually restrict it to paid listeners. So this is kind of cool. And for early access content, you want to choose an existing RSS-based show or submit a new RSS feed. This is totally possible. You can create a new episode in either Apple or Podbean or Spotify. You select an early access episode release date and restrict it to paid listeners. And you want to publish the free version of the episode in your RSS feed later, okay? And you want to link the ad-free and ad-supported episodes by inserting one of the following into your public RSS episode. This will depend upon the code will depend upon the platform where you are. Now, for archive access, you can choose an existing RSS-based show or submit a new RSS feed. You can create a new episode. You can restrict the episode to paid listeners or paid subscribers for that matter, and you can publish the free version of the episode in your RSS feed later. The thing is that when it's time to add newer episodes to the subscriber-only archive, remove them from your RSS feed. They will remain in your Spotify or your Apple Connect account as a subscriber-only content. Let me give you a bonus here. How do you set up podcast subscriptions on Spotify? Now, the thing is that Spotify is pretty straightforward when it comes to helping you get the job done. So if Spotify is your podcast hosting platform, you can set up paid podcast subscriptions through Spotify. So you will need to have at least 2 published episodes and at least 100 subscribers for the last 2 months to get started. You can see that with Spotify, things are a little more granular than it is with Apple Connect, okay? So, and podcast subscriptions via Spotify are also only available in select markets as of right now. So to actually set up your podcast subscriptions in your Spotify accounts, you want to follow this step. So you want to navigate to Spotify for podcasters in your web browser. So you want to go to your Monetize tab. So there's a tab actually called the Monetize tab. And you want to scroll to subscriptions and then click Get Started. The process is pretty straightforward. There's nothing really complicated. Spotify is great, is known for UX and UI, fantastic UX and UI. And so if you haven't done so already, you want to set up and connect your Stripe account. So you will need your Stripe account to be able to really get your cash inflows set up into really flow into the right account. And you want to choose a monthly price for subscription. So that's the price you want your listeners to pay every month so they can access your content. and you want to select the episodes you want to make paid only, then click update episodes. So you have the ability to actually choose every episode, or you can choose a few episodes, or you can choose, it really depends on you. And so this episodes that you have chosen basically would now be available only to paid subscribers. So when creating actually new episodes, simply toggle subscription only on the episodes option page before you hit publish. So the big question is, how much should you charge for podcast subscriptions? Okay. Now, most podcasters actually charge between $3 to $20 monthly for paid content, but do not price your subscriptions just based on the average. Your pricing should reflect things like the value you offer, the amount of extra work, and what your subscribers are willing to pay. So the value you offer, your audience might see ad-free episodes as worth less than completely new content. The amount of extra work will be putting in to make the bonus content, and what your subscribers are willing to pay. So you decide what pricing model will make it worth it to you based on the work you're putting in. And don't be afraid to ask your audience directly what they will be willing to pay. So you want to put out posts on social media, ask for feedback on your public podcast episodes, and survey your email list to have more information. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about podcast subscriptions, and I'm actually giving you a free guide. A free guide, a complete guide, so you have a better idea what you should be charging. So let's talk a little bit about revenue management and revenue optimization here. How much can you really earn from podcast subscriptions? It really depends on your audience, okay? So your potential income, when you really think about it, your potential income depends on the size of your audience, how many listeners are willing to pay for your content, and your planned pricing. So when we talk about how many listeners are willing to pay for your content, it really also depends on the value you are actually adding. Okay, if you're adding really value and your audience sees value in your content, they will be willing to pay for more. So if you have 10,000 listeners on average and 3% of them subscribe to paid content at $10 per month, that really is about what, $3,000 per month. So this is really some decent salary here. And how do Apple Podcast subscriptions work? Well, the thing is that Apple Podcasts lets users subscribe to individual paid podcast shows. Users can also pay to subscribe to a curated channel of multiple podcasts and view premium podcasts from the Apple News and Apple Music subscriptions all in one place. So we love the centrality here. We love the granularity you have with Spotify, but also Apple Podcast. And so what is really the difference between following and subscribing to a podcast? It really boils down to the functionalities there are inherent on the platform. You actually have, so you are able to have a free podcast. You are able to subscribe to a paid or premium podcast. You are able to, when you follow a podcast host, you are basically just, it's just kind of similar to following someone on social media. There is no sort of contractual obligations here. There's no price exchange. There's nothing paid. But when you actually subscribe to a podcast, you get the whole 9 yards. You get everything. It means you are following the podcast host automatically, but you're also getting any content that they are releasing, and this is really cool. So we love that a lot. In terms of podcast subscriptions, I want to give you one example. I want to use Spotify here, and so that we can really go into all granularity when it comes to Spotify. And so when you think about Spotify, setting up podcast subscriptions is pretty straightforward. You can charge your audience for your show's content, both on Spotify and on other listening platforms. And you will need to have at least 2 published episodes and at least 100 listeners in the last 60 days in order to begin setting up podcast subscriptions. So this is really good. And setting up and managing podcast subscriptions is only available on Spotify for Podcasters Web. Okay. And podcast subscriptions are currently available to creators and listeners in the following markets. In Asia, you have Hong Kong, Singapore. In Europe, you have Austria, Belgium, Bulgaria, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Ireland, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malta, Netherlands, Norway, Poland. You have Portugal, you have Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, and the UK. In North America, the the service is available in Canada and United States, and you have Oceania, you have Australia and New Zealand. So this is kind of cool. And so if you are in those geographies, or you are a podcast host in those geographies, you will really love the whole thing. So setting up podcast subscriptions, you want to go to your Monetize tab, scroll down to subscriptions and click Get Started. You want to set up your Stripe account, as I told you before, and you choose your monthly price, and you check the box next to the episodes you like to include in your subscription. Then click Update Episodes. You can select any episodes from your episodes page, including scheduled and drafted episodes. So it's really important to really have that in mind. And let's talk about managing subscription episodes here. So once you actually set up podcast subscriptions, you can set your existing and future episodes as subscription only from your episodes page or the episode options page. So you have flexibility there. That's what we love. So to mark a new episode as subscription only, create your episode as normal. So when you get to the episode options page, toggle on subscription only. You can also remove an episode from subscription only and make it available to all your listeners. So from your episodes page, you want to uncheck the subscription box next to the episode. You want to click updates. And from the episode option page, you want to go to the episode in question and you want to click the pencil icon next to the title. Scroll down and toggle off subscription only and click update episode. So this is really good. In terms of earnings, you want to head to the monetization tab to see how many subscribers you have and how much you have earned. You keep 100% of your earnings, excluding payments, processing fees. You also have the ability to change your subscription price. So this is totally possible. But if you have existing subscribers, it's just better. And this is what Spotify encourages creators to think through how the change will impact them. For example, some subscribers may cancel if you decide to increase your price. Everything happens on the monetization tab. So scroll to subscriptions section, and next to your current price, click on the change price link. And on the change your price screen, select your new desired price and click next. If you don't have any existing subscribers, confirm your price change and click got it. And you can change your price as often as you like if you don't have any subscribers. If you have existing subscribers, you need to make some choices about how you'd like your price change to affect them. And you can only change your price once every 90 days if you have subscribers. Okay. Now, there is an important info that Spotify wants you to consider before changing your price. So again, this is applicable to all kinds of podcasters, whether you are new, whether you are experienced, whether you are anywhere in between. So if you have selected a lower price, any existing subscribers will be charged at the new lower price on their next billing date. They will receive an email notifying them of this change. Your subscribe page will update immediately, and all new subscribers will pay your new lower price and confirm your price change, and you're all set. If you have selected a higher price, you will need to choose whether or not you want to apply the higher price to your existing subscribers. If you allow existing subscribers to continue paying the original price, basically, so you have two options, right? So if you allow the original price, or if you want them to actually pay the new higher price. So any existing subscribers will continue to be charged at the original price moving forward, and they will not be sent an email because your change will not affect their pricing. Your subscribe page will update immediately, and all new subscribers will pay your new higher price. So you need to confirm your price change, and you're all set. So this is pretty straightforward. And if you want to ask existing subscribers to pay the new higher price, any existing subscribers will be sent an email notifying them of the price change, and will have a 30-day window to take action before the new higher price goes into effect. So your subscribe page will update immediately, and all new subscribers will pay your new higher price. So you just need to confirm your price change, and you're all set. So pretty straightforward also. And so Spotify is really making sure that the user experience and the listener experience is really fantastic. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. In today's conversation, I just spoke to you about podcast subscriptions, and this was a detailed guide to sort of walk you through what you need to do if you're a podcaster and you want to really increase your revenue through other sources. So let's do a quick recap here. So I give you an overview, the pro tips, the steps, the bonus, the extras, and also focused on one example, Spotify. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.